we do all sorts of projects. We actually use this email to and this account to do all sorts of things. She is, by the way, a counselor. So yeah,
Ah,
she does a lot of counseling training and stuff like that.
I was teasing you. I thought she will be appearing
Oh,
somehow
she
to
can
introduce
appear.
to us. But that's okay. Thank you so much, Dr. David, for doing this. We are at the kind of almost final weeks of lecture, but I think it's still good for us to think about what we have done and maybe what we can do better in future semester.
Sure.
So today, Dr. David will talk about the principles of alternative assessment, and you will introduce to us a new method. Is that correct? QBS?
OBS.
OBS. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'll just do
We
a
look
quick
forward to
introduction.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, look forward to that. Thank you so much, Dr. David, and
No, thank
for
you.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe before we begin, I should introduce myself for those of you who don't know who I am. So my name is David, and I worked at the University of Malaya at the Faculty of Languages and Linguistics for I think over 10 years. Well, not really over 10 years, but around 10 years. Um, and I was at one point also Deputy Dean of Research and Development. So right now I've actually left the university because got drama a bit. Well, not really drama, but there are a couple of issues why I left, which I'll be sharing with some of these things with you guys afterwards. So, what's really funny, right? I mean, just a uh, quick reflection of what's happening right now. Because many years ago, when I was deputy dean, one of the problems we had in the faculty was traffic, and I'm sure in the university, everyone who's been there for I think the last 2 years, right? You would know that traffic is a major problem. So I actually went to the then Deputy Vice Chancellor, who is now the Vice Chancellor of USM, Prof. Rafiq, and I said to him, Prof, we kind of need to move more aggressively into MOOC so that we don't have to find our students, we don't have to worry about traffic problems. And the funny thing is, the management people were like, "Yeah, okay, we'll consider that." And what happened was actually, I think COVID-19 did my job, lah. So they actually now there's no more traffic problem in the university, and everything is all right. And we've moved on to the internet and web-based sort of like education, like what we are actually witnessing right now today. So yeah. Anyway, if you have any questions, what I'd like you guys to do, I'm just quick housekeeping interactions, because this is a new way of interacting, right? So if you have anything you like to ask at any point during the webinar, do use the chat function and just type in whatever questions you have, whatever reflections, whatever comments. And every now and then, I would also like you guys I would prompt you all to actually, put some keywords in there just to let me know that you are engaging with me so that I know I'm not talking to myself. Because again, it's kind of weird to be, interacting with people using this new means of communication. So is everything good? Is my voice okay? If it is okay, just put a thumbs up or just say everything's good or just put good in the comments. Yeah. All right. So today we are going to be talking about principles of alternative assessments, right? And I'm going to be focusing a lot more on this notion of portfolio development. Now, before that, I'd like to begin with this. The four-letter word. Okay, what do you think this four-letter word is? Okay, it's as you can see, it's a word that. Let me give you a couple of clues, right? It's a word that can make a lot of people very uncomfortable. It can make a lot of people blush, and there's a possibility of also being humiliated. And it's something that most people are also very afraid to talk about personally. What do you think the word is? If you have any clue, do put into the chat. Okay, what do you think this four-letter word is? It can be a noun, it can be a verb, it can also have an ing, and it can also be ed. Okay, so John and Janice, you got that right. So the F word is fail. Now, how many of you are actually afraid to fail? If you are afraid, type in afraid. Okay? And if you aren't afraid to fail at all in your life, type in brave. Brave. I don't know. Anyone else? Are you afraid to fail? Or are you brave to fail? Come on, like to see more people engaging with me. 50-50. Okay, thank you so much for your feedback. Now, I'd like to begin with this story, personal story I'd like to share. It's something, a point in my life where I failed really badly in life. So that's me, picture of me there, a cute kid, very scrawny looking fella. So that's me undergoing my black belt taekwondo examination. So I was doing it with a friend, right? And we've got this pomse, which is the like katas, the karate katas, but this was a taekwondo examination for my first dan black belt. So I did my free sparring. Okay, there were three assessments, right? So katas, the free sparring, and the last one was breaking of planks. But when it came to the planks, I actually failed miserably. My friend passed, but I failed. So I remember feeling so sad, so ashamed, so humiliated. And all the other kids, right, as you can see in the picture, and the parents, they were all looking at me. And I remember as a kid, I felt like I wanted to sink into the earth. I remember like being at the back of my mom's car, the driving seat, the driver's seat, and I was just brawling my eyes out. And I remember I was just like, so sad. And I felt so utterly gutted and hopeless and stuck in the moment. I mean, when we look back as adults, it's like, that's such stupid childlike behavior, right? But to a 13-year-old child, it was as though the world has ended for me and I felt like a complete failure for life. But when I look back, right, to this day, I really regard my early critical failure in life as a defining moment that actually made me a person who I am today. And that reminds me also of the time when I remember during one day, right, there was a report card day. I had never been a stellar student. I had always been failing in my classes and all that. So what happened was during the report card day, my teacher said to my mom, she said, Mrs. Young, I'm sorry to say this, but I think if your son is going to be playful and he's going to perform like this, he's going to fail in life. I remember those words, right? And it kind of like stuck to with me for the longest moment. I mean, for the longest time ever. And it was only after I went to university that I kind of like understood that education is just it's something. It's not something that is attached to you, a number, and it's something that I can redefine myself. And I actually redefined myself when I was in university. And so happened I found myself. I got into the dean's list for 3 times, and then I eventually ended up being a lecturer in the university, and so on. So, oh, thanks for sharing, Alvani. Yeah, I know it's terrible, right? It kind of like, when people like teachers say this kind of things to students, it can really affect people's, um, like self-esteem. Their brightness of the future is so like dim. I mean, there's no brightness of future. Everything looks so like terrible, right? So anyway, let's just move on to the next slide. So 2 years later, I actually earned my first dan. I remember I poured my heart and soul into Taekwondo. I remember asking my mother to allow me to attend classes 3 times a week instead of every Saturday. So I did my katas with um, so much heart and soul, so much rigor. I improved my body condition and I really committed myself to every punch and kick in practice. And when I was awarded my black belt, my master actually he said to me, right, that he saw potential in me, and he even appointed me to be his assistant instructor trainer. So the point I'm trying to get across here is that, oh yeah, that's my second dan. I got it years after, and it all came and stemmed from failing really badly as a child. And I learned to embrace the moment and did things that what my heart told me. like just like leaving my cushy job at at a time of pandemic. I mean, really, as deputy dean, it was really a fun job. I had two PAs, I had a parking spot, I was paid pretty okay, but I thought it's not something I wanted to do in my life, and that's why I left the university, right? And also, I had never been afraid ever since, ever since like failing in my first done. So I've messed up many times also in other areas of my life, like my relationships. I have a story to share with you all. Don't tell anyone, okay? So I know it's being recorded, but please don't share this. So what happened was one day I was courting this girl. That was back in UC, and I said to her, can we like start a relationship and stuff like that? And she said to me, no, I'm not interested in you. So I asked her this, like, oh, so who is your ideal partner? And she thought for a moment and said, someone like my father. And I said to her, why don't you marry your father, right? Oh, I mean, it was like a real slap, and I really got slapped by her. And but the thing is, I failed in so many times in my relationship, but I never had any sense of fear of actually taking risks. And I think it all stemmed from my experience of actually failing taekwondo in my early days and life. So I want to also just dwell a little bit more into the whole idea of failure and how later I'm going to relate it to portfolio development. How this is actually very powerful. So our history has shown many instances of people failing and only for them to emerge victorious and powerful. So if you look here, you know who this person is? If you do, just say, yeah, I know, and maybe you can just put the initials. Who do you think this person is? So this person wrote this, right? A mere 7 years after my graduation day, I had failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded, and I was jobless, a lone parent, and as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain. And so rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. Yeah, that's right. J.K. Rowling's, right? And let's look at another person. You know who this person is? If you do, also type in who you think this person is. And this is what he said: I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Do you know who this person is? If you do, type in there. That's right, Thomas Edison. Great. How about the next person? It is important to have a good heart failure when you're young because it makes you kind of aware what can happen to you. Because of it, I have never had any fail in my whole life when we've been near collapse and all of that. I've never been afraid. Who do you think this is? That's right, Walt Disney. This guy, I'm sure most of you know, he says this, right? If you don't give up, you still have a chance. Giving up is the greatest failure. This guy, let me give you some clues about his background. He failed so many exams in his school. He didn't get any of the 30 jobs he applied for. He got rejected by KFC. I mean, who gets rejected by KFC, right? And if he got a job, he says this, right? He may not have become a success story. And this guy, do you know who he is? This guy is actually the founder of Lotus chain restaurant and companies, which include music shops and cineplexes in Malaysia. So for those of you not in the know, he's Datuk R. Dorai Singham Pillai. And he says this, right? If you don't give up, you still have a chance. Giving up is the greatest failure. So if there is one thing that all of these stories tell us, it is that failures help us to grow, right? Failures help us to grow. If we never learn to stand up when we fall as a baby and we gave up early, we would forever be crawling. So failure helps us to make lessons experiential. Failures help us to be bold in making decisions. Failures help us to grow. Do you all agree? If you agree, type agree. If you don't, say don't agree. Okay, thank you for your feedback. So one of the truth I found in this universe is that if we never participate fully in our lessons, or if we never commit fully in doing something that our heart really wants us to do, we will never grow, you know? And it's one of those principles in life. Now, I want to relate all of this to our current education system. Does this picture, this comic actually resonate with you? Do you think it resonates with you? So, the thing about this, right, is that the education system, not just in Malaysia, but actually most parts of the world, um, instead of encouraging our students to embrace failures, our system actually punishes students. Just think about it for a moment and hear me out. Our ministers want our children to be streamlined and funneled to enter into the workforce, right, in the name of industrialization. So, for example, Dr. Mahathir, I mean, this guy is a visionary, right? And he says that, okay, we want our kids to study science and math and engineering so that when they come out, they can help the country to become richer, to become more developed. Now, these are all, not to say it's bad, it's good. But the thing is, when you have education policymakers thinking about our education system like a conveyor belt in a factory, what happens? We streamline everything, we funnel them, the students, children into the system, and then if they pass a certain kind of standards, then they actually move into certain kind of streams. If they don't, what happens? They get stuck behind, they go into class pemulihan. Some of them may actually be asked to go into the lower sort of like, stigmatized education stream, the vernacular school systems, right? And where they learn how to do plumbing work and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stigma as well. And it's in a way, a shame because it punishes students who don't fit into certain molds, certain kinds of what I call cookie cutters. So blueprints are created, and our education system treats and conceptualize, again, not just to reiterate this point, the education system like a factory, right? You put a child in a school, and what comes out are graduates who can serve the nation and make money so that they can pay taxes and grease up the economy. So in fact, my team and I, we actually got a grant many years ago, and we wrote an article. If you're interested, you can check this out. So we studied the education blueprint, and also more importantly, the graduate employability blueprint. And this is the article of our paper, prescribing roles in the employability of Malaysian graduates, right? So, but let us play the devil's advocate for a moment. Let us think like a politician or a bureaucrat who looks at people to be managed. So what happens now is that, we set up standards, standard 1 to standard 6 to form 1 to form 6, go through the hoops, if you want to be successful, and then you get a certificate saying that you're competent. So that's how the education thinks about our students, right? And how we should move. And parents are also, they buy into this idea and they say, yes, the government knows best, so we send all our kids into this kind of like stream systems. So students, at the end of the day, what happens is they are measured in terms of their competence. We need numbers to compare them empirically, who gets into national universities, who does not, who gets scholarship, who does not. So everything needs to be done in an objective manner. But this is what happens, right? And if you think about, reflect all of these principles into the current sort of assessment methods that's going on in your courses, in your programs right now, you'll see things like this. You will have like, okay, I'm going to set 2 written assessments. I'm going to be attributing 15% times 2, 2 student presentations, 1 final examination. So when you add all of this, then you get, what do you call it? You get your results, whether this candidate pass or fail. So that's how the current education thinks about quality control. Okay, so they are all mapped out accordingly to these mapping of alignments of learning outcomes. But what are some of the important issues that can actually emerge from this? So there are 4 key points I'd like to share here. I'm sure there are more key points, but I want to solely exclusively focus on these 4. Number 1, fear of failing students. So what happens if a student fails? Well, that's too bad, right? They get stranded behind their peers, or in the university, they cannot graduate, they cannot move on until they pass. So I've attended so many pre-board meetings in my during the days as a lecturer, and sometimes we have cases where students actually they are on the borderline. They are not they have actually failed. They did not pass, right? But then the pre-board says, okay, we can only award, let's say, 3 points, and if we award them, they can pass, then they actually get to progress on. Otherwise, they need to stay back. So a lot of times there is this pressure to ensure that they pass, because otherwise it will mess up the schedule. We will derail the not only the students but also the lecturers. The lecturers need to create new classes to accommodate to the existing students. So we get afraid of holding back these students. We are afraid to fail them, and we don't want to mess up our students' neatly packed, structured curriculum. So that leads to the second point I want to raise here, and that is impression management. So literature has a lot of um, these documented practices of impression management. So lecturers are bound by rigid policies found in audit forms, the MQA, right? The infamous MQA forms, where we must fill up, carry out the curriculum and assessment plans based on the previous curriculum reviews. So you have all of these curriculum reviews, which are carried out in the spirit of improving the curriculum. So thinking about alternative assessment methods can be very difficult to implement, such as portfolios, because as what I'm going to be showing afterwards, portfolios do not subscribe to all of these common ways of assessing students. We don't give numbers. Okay, so portfolios, like many alternative assessments, are very learner-centric. So going back to that picture, the comic of the animals all line up, and the assessor says, okay, if you can climb up the tree, you pass. But not everyone, our students included, right? Not everyone, and ourselves included, if you think about it, can't fit that kind of mold. Okay, so now the thing about portfolio is that it enables students to build a very unique sort of like CV, so to speak, and that can make it very difficult to assess, because different students may have very different abilities. They may actually, for example, let's just consider this situation where you have a student who prefers to perform on YouTube, to record videos and all that, as opposed to a student who prefers to run a business. How are you going to assess these two? If you have these two students in your class and you're doing, let's say, an entrepreneurship program. So the many of the times when the lecturers come up with the curriculum procedures, right? And this is what we want to teach in the classroom, and this is how we're going to assess. Most of the time, the feedback we give students are mainly coming from the lecturer alone. There is no what we call triangulation of ideas and also approaches. I mean, so far, do you guys follow what I'm trying to get at here? If you do, just type yes. Okay. So, okay, great. So general complaints also include, right? If you think about it, the newspapers that we read on a daily basis, sometimes they will write why our graduates are not getting jobs, and they say that lack of English proficiency, lack of relevance in the workplace. But these are graduates who have actually went through all of these hoops, who've gotten all their A's and all that, but they're still struggling to get jobs. There must be something wrong here, right? Number 3, the idea of conventional results capturing only cross-sectional performance data. So what does this mean? So just because I know how to say, for example, all right, okay, I know some Tamil words. I can say Vanakam, I can say Romba Nandri, I can count from 1 to 10 in Tamil. Let me try to show off here a bit. Ona, Renda, Muna, Nala, Anja, Ara, Yera, Yeta, Ombada, Pata. If those of you Indian here and you found me to be incorrect, just type incorrect, yeah? But anyway, I can say all of this, right? But it does not mean I am competent in the Tamil language. And this is, for example, in what I teach, right? Like English lessons and all that. So if the student can actually do all of this, does it mean that they are actually competent in the language? And this lack of awareness, in my opinion, is actually one of the reasons why our education system, not only in the university, but actually also more importantly in the lower grades, from standard 1 right up to standard 6 and up to form 6, it is very much based on rote learning, which is the next point I want to make here. So there's so much rote learning, and rote learning basically means you memorize what you've learned, and then what you do is you regurgitate everything out in the final examinations. But that does not mean the student is actually competent at no, just because they can perform, it does not mean that they are competent. So memorizing the correct answers are actually very common in the way, if you look at the education syllabus in the secondary schools and below, right? And even final essays too. What students need to do is just memorize key ideas, bring them out, and this is what they say, right? Goreng. You goreng, 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 and then that's how you pass. And that these are some of the common problems with our current assessment methods. And then you get this kind of news coming out yet. Malaysian graduates, are they relevant, or is it yet irrelevant? You have all of these kind of things. And then the worst part is this, right? You have depressed students who don't perform well according to the cookie cutter set by the education ministry. What happens is that you have depressed students who try to kill themselves, right? Although it's not many cases like this, right? Let's just see. Stress drives 40 students to suicide every year, and so on and so forth. So the students, right? Although these cases are not many, thankfully, but it's still uncommon to find stories and studies of children showing them committing suicides, or or attributing them to study stress. So what's causing all of this stress? The literature states quite a number of things: societal expectations, self-worthlessness, learned helplessness, and among some Asian parents, they punish their students and they guilt trip them. I'm not sure if any of you experienced that sort of thing where your parents take the rotan and beat you up. Have you, any of you, the lecturers here, you've experienced such things before? If you say, yes, kena rotan, right? If you say you kena scolding before, okay, even if it's not rotan, just type rotan to indicate that you have been punished before for failing your lessons. And then some of the parents would say things like, I've worked so hard to give you this education, and if you don't do well, you're wasting my money, you're wasting my time, and so on and so forth. So this is actually very prominent in China, where there's so much pressure for the children to succeed in life that the parents are actually piling up a lot of expectations on the children. So one of the key reasons why I left the university is precisely because of this. The education is very dehumanizing in my viewpoint. In fact, if you were to sit in the management meeting, especially because I was deputy dean for a while, I mean, it's not a critique. Well, in a way it is, but it's not to condemn anything. It's just that this is how things are done because of the structures that are in place. So when you look at the way the management thinks about education quality, you think about the ranking, the university ranking. It's a lot to do with numbers. How many papers have you published? Have you published in these tiered journals? What are your numbers like? And there's a lack of discussion concerning things like involving the well-being of the students, the well-being of the community. We don't have that sort of discourses going on at the top management level. And that was actually one of the reasons why I also left the university. There's so much emphasis on numbers as key indicators of performance. Okay, so after 2 years of being deputy dean, I decided it's time to leave. And I mean, I spoke to my wife a lot, and I was like, we can make a real difference in education, because now that we are entrepreneurs, we've met so many. The world is so colorful. When you go out there, you meet all of these entrepreneurs. Some of them don't even have education, high school education. Some are school dropouts, some are university dropouts, but they are all very successful people. In fact, there was an old saying by one of my, I'm not sure, uncle or father. He said something like this. No, it was one of the senseis. This guy, he trains entrepreneurs, and he said this, right? The smart people with PhDs tend to work with people, and the ones without education are the ones who actually employ these PhD people. They become entrepreneurs. And in a way, it's true, because, when you have achieved success in a sense at academic performance, you eventually get funneled into certain streams. People say that, okay, I don't need to put myself at risk, because, I already have a comfortable job and stuff like that. So anyway, it's a very systemic, and in a way, it's a kind of cultural DNA of the old. if we are truly concerned about prioritizing our students' learning needs, think about it. We as educators really need to take a step back and think about evolving from the current ways of doing things. So, if we truly believe in the idea of needs based education and that education needs to be organic in the sense that students don't need to fit into certain molds, then it's perhaps time to humanize education. And this comes back to the point that I raised earlier. We shouldn't punish failures. In fact, we should encourage more failures in schools, in the university. Encourage students, you keep trying, you fail, it's fine. Okay? The university and schools are safe zones, and they must be the place where all of this experiential learning of failures can be done safely and without shame. But as it stands, of course, there are structures, there are foundations that make it hard to be implemented because you have to fulfill your KPIs, you have to make sure that these students fulfill certain grades. But what happens? Think about the consequences of doing that. If the students actually don't deserve, they have not really learned what they have been taught, should you actually allow them to graduate? Okay, so if you think about it, education should never be something that we cause grief. Education is something needs to be experiential. It needs to we need to get rid of all the grades. We need to get rid of all the social comparisons. In fact, I just had a thought and just like a reminiscence of my childhood. I remember I was always at the bottom 30th of the class. I had about 32 students in class, and I was always at number 30 placing. And all the other students were always performing well. I remember sometimes being really ashamed of myself because I could not perform like the other kids. And, it kind of demoralized me. And the thing is, today, when I talk to some of the parents, this is still happening in schools, that children are being ranked according to how they have performed in the class, in the school, and it's all being shared with everyone else. I mean, just imagine if you're at the bottom of the food chain, right? What would happen to your self-esteem? So a lot of kids sometimes they actually drop out from school because of that sort of social expectations that they cannot fit in. And that is why, again, this is a point I'm trying to make here and trying to really, really push across. That is, we should move away from grades and numbers. Okay, so when you do that, you get rid of all the problems related to rote learning, memorization, regurgitation, and failure does not mean you fail to actually learn something. Okay, so I want to share also a little bit of story about these three guys. These three guys have been people I've actually come to know about, and some of them I've come to interact with, and very inspiring stories that they have to share. The guy on the far most left, his name is Merrick Fu, right? He dropped out of university, so he actually studied, and he became a Buddhist monk for a while, and then now he's a really well-known entrepreneur in the Malaysian scene and also overseas as well. So this guy, right, he says that he's been poor for most parts of his life, but he kept hustling. He kept starting many businesses, and he's best known for being a trainer who works with businesses in digital marketing, copywriting, and content creation. And the second guy his name is Vishnan. You may actually seen his videos on Facebook and YouTube as well. So he's actually the founder of Mind Valley. It's actually a Malaysian startup, yeah, by the way. This guy, he got an internship at Microsoft, and he even met Bill Gates. But then he said to himself, this is not what I want to do with my life. He quit and followed his heart. So he failed many times, but he actually started this program to change people's lives, and it's through Mind Valley he does it. And the last guy, this guy, his name is Jeffrey Yong. He's a guitar luthier, so he builds guitars. He's unknown to many people in Malaysia, but in the world of guitar musicians and all that, yeah. So the thing is, right, I got to know of this Jeffrey Young because I built my guitar actually with him. So one of his guitars, right, when he builds one, it takes only about 2 weeks to build a guitar, and he sells it for $15,000 US dollars. Okay, this guy is basically, my wife just brought me my guitar. So this is my guitar. It's the same build as what that guy has, if you can see. Really beautiful sound. Can you think? Put it on the sofa. Like so. So Jeffrey Yong, right? This guy doesn't have a university education, and back then in Malaysia, there is no guitar building courses and all that. So the way when I asked him, right, how did he get started with building guitars? He actually said that he didn't have anything. So what he did was he went to the car mechanic workshops, he went to the carpentry workshops, he sat down, he joined as an apprentice, he learned how wood is shaped, how to cut wood. He actually spent his time asking questions, interacting, immersing, trying himself. And now today, after I think about 30 years down the road, he's a master guitar luthier. 15,000 US dollars. It only takes 2 weeks, and he on top of that he has like this training sessions where he teach people how to build guitars. So all these three people do not have university education, but they are all very successful individuals. Okay, very successful individuals. Now the thing is, when you talk to them, right, one of the things they share that is very common in that narrative is that they have many battle scars. They learn they learn how to do business the hard way. They learn through mentorships, whatever support that they could get. They learn what works, what doesn't, how to stay relevant, how to adjust accordingly, and so on. So these lessons to them has often been very painful. Sometimes they become like they sleep in their cars and all that because they can't pay the rents. And but the thing is, right, all of these experiences, the failures, made these individuals very resilient, wiser, and very skilled in their professions. So the point is, right, what I'm trying to get across here is that they build their portfolios based on real life marketplace. That is their real assessment. It's based on what the real market says about their ability to perform, how competent they are. And when you talk about the real marketplace, people can be really mean, they can be very cruel, okay, they can say very nasty things that can destroy your self-esteem. But this is where, again, it's the school of hard knocks that makes portfolio very, very powerful. So what I'm trying to propose here is not the conventional way of thinking about how we do assessments in the university, in the classroom, and all that. Okay, but I'm also not suggesting that I'm trying to get all the lectures to get our students to drop out from school to end university and all that, right? Far from it. What I'm suggesting is there is so much to learn from the world outside of academia. And it's something that I'm currently experiencing with my wife as well. We are learning so much about how all of these other entrepreneurs are learning the kinds of lessons, the school of hard knocks, so to speak. Okay, and how can we draw from other people's narratives, experiences, in order to build our own portfolio? So I hope I've kind of like, in a way, convinced you, right? And I want to talk a little bit about why we should try to strive to push for portfolios. So portfolios demonstrate one's abilities to add value to other people's lives. When we talk about building portfolios, we are talking about adding value. So if you understand what I'm trying to get across here, do type in the chat value, okay? You are adding value into people's lives. Now, as educators, that is what you need to hammer into your students' heads, that whatever you learn, you must try to add value into people's lives. Portfolio assessments demonstrate how truly competent you are based on what the market dictates. So think about it. Yeah? If you really want your students to be very competent graduates, when they leave the university, they are like, wow, they are really of quality. This is what you need to do. When I was in Toronto, right, I was visiting one of my friends there. We did our PhD together in Australia. And so this guy is now, he's also an editor of one of the tier 1 journals on semiotics. And he brought me around his campus. It's known as Ryerson University. So the campus is a private campus, right? And it's fascinating because there was once he brought me into the student center. And the center has 5 levels, and each level it's like a really big open space. Students can just chill out one section. do their studies, they can interact, have group works and stuff like that. And there's actually one area which is known as the incubation area, and I found it to be so mind blowing that when I came back to I was like, hey, guys, we need to actually do this, but because of budget problems and all that, we can't lah. But anyway, the point is they have this student center where it's all made of glass. So anyone can just walk by the cubicles and you'll see that there is an ongoing project. So some people may be working on, let's say, a prototyping an app. Another one would be like prototyping a kitchen hardware sort of thing. So when people just look at that, they study what project is going on, they can actually go into the incubation room and talk to the people and say, hey, let's collaborate, let's work together, let's synergize. And I found that to be so powerful because it is one of those ways to actually help people create portfolios. And the university actually encourages students to make money from there. So that means once they come up with their projects, they are free to actually use the university's facilities to sell their ideas, their projects. And I think that is one of the great way to also build portfolios in a very safe environment. So if anything goes wrong, the university can still, in a way, cushion the landings, the failures that the students experience. It's something that we also need to think about, let's say in if we really want to truly make our students very competent in the workplace. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the principles, the other ones here, yeah? Principle number one in actually making a portfolio assessment powerful and experiential and really working is that you need to remember you are an enabler as an educator. You need to provide the tools, the knowledge, the skill sets to help students do useful things with. That is why always look at your learning outcomes. Now, the learning outcomes are quite useful. You think about the Bloom's taxonomy and all that, but don't be caught by dogma. Don't be caught by this is how things must be done and it must be done in that certain way. Think about it as a guide to help you create very meaningful sort of like education. Okay. Number two, remember you are not the ultimate decision maker of your students' portfolio or their performance or their competence. Your role as an educator is to be giving constructive feedback. That is why I'm again, it goes back to the point I was making earlier. I don't believe in the grade system. I don't believe giving a number to people because it does not have as much gravity as getting feedback from the masses. Okay, so you're not the ultimate decision maker, and that is how sometimes I get students complaining to me, for example, from one certain faculty, not the Faculty of Languages and Linguistics, we are quite clean there. But there are some other faculties where the students say to me that, the lecturer doesn't like the student because the lecturer doesn't like what they're doing. They don't give good grades. They fail the students and say your work is terrible. And I get that kind of stories all the time. And that is not how our education system should be like. Remember, we are people who are giving constructive feedback. Okay, whether or not the students listen is really up to them. After all, it's the real world's market feedback that is likely to differ from yours significantly. When I come out, when I left the university and I came out with all of these ideas, one of the things that really struck me really quickly, right, is that the ideas I had did not resonate with many of the ideas from what the market actually demands. And it's through the kind of feedback I quickly learned that to calibrate my expectations and all that. And in the same way, we need to also prepare our students to remember, as lecturers, we can only give one point of view. They need to actually triangulate their portfolios, how competent they are by looking at what the world has to say about their performance. Okay, so far so good, everyone. If it's good, just type good so that I know I'm not lonely talking to myself here. This is one thing about webinars, right? It's often like just one-off. I can't really read body language. Most of you are all, I can't see your faces because you turn off your cameras. Except for Janice, I can see your face there. Thank you for being transparent. So if you're engaging with me, please do type so that I know that you're with me. Yeah? Okay, number three. Portfolios work best without grades or numbers. The best indicator of assessments, this runs in contrary to what many people think, but the best indicators of assessments are qualitative driven. So what this means is that need to get your students to ask questions like this. What are the strengths? What are my strengths in my course, in this course, in my project that I'm doing? Am I weak in? How can I further improve myself? These three questions can give a lot more input than just numbers. Qualitative feedback. Okay, three questions. Let me just repeat them again. Number one, what are the strengths that I have? Number two, what am I weak in? Number three, how can I further improve myself? These three questions can help change your student's life way better than a quantitative number you attribute to students. So you get the students not to only get feedback from one person, but you ask your students to triangulate, to get it from outside of the university, get it from their peers, get it from the community around them. So now education becomes more experiential, is more meaningful, is more organic and more alive because we are not talking about numbers anymore. So if a person were to fail a course, okay, if you think about it, right? If let's say you as an educator, you think your student doesn't deserve to pass, right? There is no penalty to that. The student may actually proceed on because, yeah, you didn't learn anything, but maybe down the road you can actually learn and pick up the skills that you did not actually get at first. So when they complete a program, they receive a certificate of completion. So that's how again, I'm not saying that universities should move into this direction, but it would be nice if they could actually think about out of the box and move towards that direction. They receive a certificate of completion, which does not necessarily mean they are competent, but it means that they have completed the course. Whether or not they are competent, this is where it needs to be portfolio driven. They need to show, I have done this, I have done that, and this is what people have said. I have added value into people's lives. That's a very important point. Does the portfolio show the students have added value to people's lives, right? And these principles humanize the individual's learning needs a lot more. Do you all agree with me, or are there any people who say, nah, I disagree what this guy is saying? It's like nonsense, what's going on? So if you agree, do type there, agree. If you disagree, just type disagree. And if you can, also just put a remark why you disagree. It's fine because, it's great to have this kind of feedback. Okay. How to carry out portfolio assessments as lecturers. Okay. Number one, again, these are suggestions I'm sharing with you all. It doesn't mean that you need to follow. It just means these are things you can think about in order to implement the portfolio sort of assessment slowly but surely into your course. Number one, calibrate the course learning outcomes with your students. So that means you get your students to really understand why we are learning what we are learning. Go through the course learning outcomes together with your students. Make sure that they understand the expectations of the course. That is, they are able to demonstrate competence. So the best way to demonstrate competence is by, again, doing something for the real world or the real marketplace. Okay? And then the second point is this. Teach what you need to teach, the concepts, the theories, the analytical frameworks, whatever you need to teach. Okay? You impart your lessons. That is step number two. Step number three. So again, the metaphor I like to use here is you're the enabler. You are actually giving the tools to your students. You're teaching them, okay, this is how you use the hammer. This is how you use the saw, and so on and so forth. You impart the lessons. Step number three, you work with your students. And I came up with this model, right? It's called Retail, which I'll be sharing with you afterwards. So you work with your students to create opportunities. So your role now is to help students to find out, okay, I've learned all of this. I've learned how to use the nail and the hammer. I learned how to use the saw and the screwdrivers and all that. How can you use that to add value to the marketplace? Okay, the real market. So what is retail? Retail is actually a model that your students, you yourself can use to think about what can we do to add value, to create new opportunities amongst our students and our community. Number one, read voraciously. So you can tell the students, okay, in order to upskill yourself, not just in the class itself, but to make yourself really, really powerful. When I say power, I mean by the Foucauldian term of knowledge is power. by reading as much as you can. Okay, so you read, delve as deeply as you can into the topics, spend time enriching your mental sphere, learn new ways to see the world so that you can spot new opportunities when they arise. And the best way is actually by reading books, because books basically are collections of people's ideas. These are what people, the sifus, people with all sorts of different experiences and different viewpoints, they have shared. When you read those books, you are going to absorb some of those point of views, those perspectives, those knowledge viewpoints. And that is what we need to impart in amongst our students. Read as much as you can. Number two, draw from your experiences. Get your students to think about from their experiences, to dwell into their own experiences, their own core values, and ask questions like this. What are some skills or experiences that you think you have that can make it useful for other people? We all have something that other people need. So, and I think it's quite important, to also impart to the students that you don't look down on your own competence. Try to try to make your acquired skills, your knowledge, your experiences, your values work for you. How do you make money from there? So I want to share a story of a project that I did with my faculty a couple of years back. It's called the HELP project. It stands for Heritage Language Propagation Program. So the idea came about when I was thinking to myself as well, how do we get to make our students employable? So I worked with the Tamil division group, and I said to them this, right? And I said to the dean, Prof. Stephanie Pillay, back then, I said to her, hey, I have this idea. I want to share with you and I want to see whether it could work. So I had a meeting with her and said, let's get our students, the Tamil students, to actually teach Tamil to the community. Not just the university students, not just within the campus, but open it up to the real marketplace. So what happened was, why are we doing this? What is the drive behind this? Number one, national unity. Just imagine, some of you are Malays here. If you are a Malay, right? If you are a Chinese person and you can speak Tamil, Manakam, Romba Nandri, right? Let's just say you can do all of that and your grammar, you have like certain competence of grammar, and you were to interact with the community of Tamil speakers, what do you think would happen? What do you think would happen? Can you just type in there in the comments? What do you think would happen if you are you're not an Indian, but you can speak Tamil? What do you think would happen? If you're a Malay and you can speak Chinese, you can speak Cantonese, you can speak all the Chinese dialects, what do you think would happen? Come on, people, share. You got to engage with me. Otherwise, it's just so lonely to be talking to myself. Sorry, what? Where? No, I don't see it. Oh, okay. Yeah, afterwards. Yeah, that's right, right? When you are able to speak Tamil as an outsider, you will be quickly accepted by the group. So that was one of the core ideas of the HELP project. I said to the dean then, let's push for this. And on top of that, not only will we try to bridge national unity by getting people of different ethnic groups to learn how to speak the language, we will get also the Indian people who want to reconnect with the Tamil language to be in touch with their own mother tongue again. And the third one is, wow, Dr. Ng can speak Nepalese to gods. Fantastic. And what else? You can also get the students to learn how to develop a business from their skills of learning Tamil. If the students can actually teach other people Tamil, wouldn't that be great? They can make a livelihood out of that. So I had all of these ideas, right? And I engaged with the Tamil students with the lectures. I said, okay, guys, I want you to do this. I want you to teach to the whole wide world. I want you to teach Tamil. I want you to also market the Tamil courses to, to get as many people into the program. So our pilot project was actually quite powerful, because although we only had, I think, about 7 clients, but what happened, I did a feedback post test later on with the students. I asked them, so how did this experience change you? You know what they said to me? One of them said that, we were actually like very scared because we don't have education background. Look at all the education students. They all can teach, but we cannot teach. What makes us better than them? But after having taught, market the course, teaching to the clients, they actually built their self-esteem. And they said, now I realize I don't need anyone's permission to start a business. I don't need to be a person with a certificate of education to teach Tamil. I can do it on my own. So that was actually one of the validation of the project. And then I asked some of the clients, who came in. Some of them were Malay people, some of them were Chinese, and some were Indian. And we also had a couple of foreign Iranians in the course. So I asked them the same question as well. How has this helped you? Did it help you to feel connected with the Tamil group? And they said yes, because of the mere fact that they could learn the grammar to interact. It helped them to actually bridge the ethnic gap a little bit. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that if you help your students to add value, you see that there is so much value that can be added in the curriculum. It makes the learning very experiential, and the feedback that they get not only comes from the lecturer, but it comes from the community around them. That's what makes portfolio so powerful. In fact, you know what happened after that? One of the students actually wrote to me and she said she got a job in Singapore as a Tamil trainer, because Singapore is looking for they're pumping in a lot of money trying to get to revitalize the language in Tamil language in Singapore. So they hired some of our students to be trainers over there. So that was actually one of the kinds of validations I also had from this. So again, coming back to the retail framework, get your students to draw from their experiences and their values and ask, what can you do with what you have to add value to people's life? When you are able to add value, that is where money comes in. Number 3, the third point I want to raise here is this: test your ideas. So ask your students to always test their ideas. That way, they know what works, what doesn't work, and in order to test, they need to get feedback, honest feedback from the market. Not just relying on one person, because in our lives also, right? If you think about it, we have people around us who are like crabs. You all know what crabs are? If you don't know what crabs are, okay, if you know what crabs are, type there crabs. So crabs are like people who, when you share an idea with them, and they will look at you skeptically and they say, not going to work. Don't waste your time. So the crab metaphor is like, and this is something I learned in my entrepreneurship training, right? Crabs, when you put them in a basket, they would try to escape the basket. And the crabs at the bottom, what they tend to do is they pull down the crabs from the top. And then they try to actually crawl over the other. And then the cycle repeats. So at the end of the day, no crab actually escapes from the basket. So crabs are people who are those who pull us down. Sometimes like the saying goes, right? Company loves misery, or misery loves company. So the thing is, that is why triangulation is so important. When you want to test your ideas, always get feedback, not from one person, not like the lecturer alone. Sometimes the lecturer, you may hate your lecturer, the lecturer hates the student. So what happens? The student doesn't get good grades. And because of that, they get penalized, So the thing is, if the students were to get their feedback from the marketplace, people around them, and get honest feedback, people who are not afraid to be honest with them, but they are able to convey their feedback in a very honest and compassionate manner. So, for example, right, if let's say I come up with, let's say I'm having a discussion with my wife, and I say like, hey, I got this brilliant idea. I want to do X, Project Y, and Project Z. So she may say, okay, let's say she's a very good person who can really give good mentorship, support, and feedback. She could then say like, okay, these are good initiatives you have, but I think there are problems with it. You need to consider these aspects, instead of shooting it down straight away. So that's how we know whether people are genuine in giving quality, honest feedback. And remember the 3 points I said earlier? Like, first one, what am I strong in? What am I weak in? How can I improve? These are three very important questions to actually test your ideas. The next point I'm going to make is this: asking question. Okay, the fourth component of retail. Ask constructive, open-ended questions that make you think, or make the students think. So open-ended questions open up new possibilities into thinking, how can I, what kind of problems need addressing? What can I do to add value to people's lives? So these kind of open-ended questions are actually very powerful in actually opening up again possibilities. In fact, this idea came from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure some of you have read the book. I'm not sure if you have read back from cover to cover. The idea of questions, right? So he was sharing this story where he asked the poor dad, "Dad, I want to buy a car." So the poor dad says this to him: "We cannot afford." End of story, end of conversation. But when he asked the same question to the rich dad, "Dad, I want to buy a car." You know what the rich dad said? "Okay, what can you do to afford that car?" Do you see the difference in the way how powerful questions can be as opposed to a statement? A statement ends conversation. A question opens up conversations, opens up new possibilities. And this is what you need to teach your students. Get them to ask questions as much as possible in terms of how can we add value to people's lives. The next point is this: immersing yourself in data. Ask your students and you yourself, immerse, swim in the data. Okay, collect as much data as you can, interact with it, try to understand the nuances, look at it from all sorts of angles. So in a way, it's like Socrates. I like to bring up the story of Socrates here. Some of you know Socrates, right? Yes. Okay. If you know who Socrates is, the idea is this, right? Socrates, he used to spend a lot of time in the agora. So the agora is where he would debate with people over there, and sometimes he would just like get lost in his thoughts. And when he gets lost in his thoughts, what happens? He actually he he gets moments of epiphany, and by the time he awakens up, the agora is already very dark. And that is the kind of thing we want our students to be doing, immersing themselves in data, in their thoughts. So what you need to do is to ask the students, where is that agora in your life where you can actually immerse yourself in thoughts, lose yourself in thoughts? I have a few places: the library, and the second place is the toilet, actually. In fact, many times, right, when I'm doing my toilet business, I'm always talking to myself in the toilet. I'm like, hey, I got ideas here, I got ideas there. Sometimes my wife will say to me, are you having your schizophrenic moments again? So the thing is, when you're in that zone, that place. And I know some people, right? One guy was sharing as well when I did my training the other day. He says that his agora is when he's doing long distance driving. So when he's driving up the highway or down the highway, and it's a really long stretch, and he looks at the beautiful scenery, and he just goes lost in his thoughts, and it's like always thinking about things. Now that's also another way of immersion. Right? Where is your place of immersion where you are? There's no distraction. So think about it and ask your students to also find that place, the agora, immersing yourself in data. Lastly is this: leverages. So leverage is all about finding the people who can help you to overcome a problem that is difficult to solve. So you need to also teach your students how to build those leverages. How can we use technology to find ways to solve certain problems? And also leverages comes from people. So I came up with another model. I know ever since I left the university, right, I've been coming out with so many different kinds of models. So one model of a leverage is CARE, C-A-R-E. And when we talk about CARE, we're talking about support systems. So who are the people who can provide you with care? When we talk about care, C stands for companionship. When you do things, it can be, especially when you're working alone on projects, it can be, or a PhD thesis, right? Most of us have all been in that situation before. It can be very lonely. it can be very distressing at times, especially when your supervisor marks and say, "Yeah, terrible idea, rewrite, rewrite, rewrite." This is a stupid comment or whatever. So we need companions, people who can cheer us on. They are there to say, "Hey, it's okay, it's all right. You will do better the next time." They are also there to celebrate your small wins. Every time you have small successes, they're there to say, "Come, let's celebrate together." Okay, they are there to be your emotional support. So that's the C component. A, administrative support. Administrative support is all about um, there's many times in our lives there's so much nonsense, right? In terms of bureaucracy, we have to deal with. I'm sure all the people there, you all have to deal with the nonsense with the bureaucrats, right? You have the audits. You want to claim money, so oh my god, the benda hari. That's one reason why I left the university, by the way. So it's terrible, right? The all of this sort of bureaucracy. So we need people who can help us to deal with that. The third one, CAR, resources. Now, Tila, my colleague, right? Thank you for joining today. So Tila is actually a person I would say who's very resourceful. So if you need money, you can go to her lah. But Tila is someone who has extensive networks. She has worked very closely with Dato Azman of Mr. DIY, the CEO over there, and she gets grants to run projects for the Orang Asli community. Now, that is a kind of leverage. You leverage off people who can uplift you. They provide money, they provide support, they provide the technology. So who are the people who can do that? CARE, last one, expertise support. Expertise support are mentors. They are the ones who actually guide you. Like ever since I've left the university, I've also, my wife and I, we have actually tried to find new mentors to help us to build our businesses. So we have actually networked around, and we have identified a couple of mentors. And these people are, some of them are very successful in their own world. They are, and we try to draw their knowledge, their narratives, their stories of failures in order to help us learn these are the pitfalls we should avoid, and so on and so forth. So care can be leveraged upon, and we can teach our students how to do all of that. Okay, is everyone clear so far? Is everyone good? You can follow me? Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's move on. So, how can we carry out our portfolio assessments? There are 3 steps. Sorry, 4 steps, yeah? So I've already covered the first, second, and third. Now, the 4th step is this. Obtain triangulated feedback. So, step 4 is feedback time. After the activity is completed, so let's say a student were to come up with a project. The student should showcase their work to people and in their circles and beyond. They should get the market's opinion. Again, it goes back to these ideas, right? The market, the people out there, what do they say about your work? So students must provide an honest reflection in writing. And this is how you can incorporate as lecturers into your classroom. When you give them a project, ask them to reflect. Okay, what went right, what went wrong? In fact, I just suddenly had a thought. One of my colleagues, right, I think it was Dr. Visha from education faculty. She was sharing a story of one of the entrepreneurship programs that was done, and they found a lot of problems. This was the pilot, right, many years back. So the university wanted the students to, or rather, they want the students to be entrepreneurs. So by the time they graduate, they can become job creators. They can be job creators when they come up. So one of the projects the students did was this, sell kueh. So they formed groups, right? Like there were a few groups. You know how they actually did their business? They got one group to buy kueh from another group, and that group sell kueh to that initial group. So that's how they do business. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of entrepreneurship, right? And the reason why the students actually did that was because they are being graded. When you give grades, this is what happens. Students try, and it's very natural. It's a very normal human tendency. You try to game the system. But if you tell the students, look, you want to game the system, fine, go ahead. But the real market will determine whether or not you are successful when you graduate. This is the kind of thing that will make students take their education more seriously. Because at the end of the day, you can say it's not me that's going to give you the passing mark. It is the real marketplace. If you want to be a job creator, the people out there who's going to give you money will determine and judge whether you are adding value to their lives. So if you can actually impart these kind of ideas, it makes the students take their studies very seriously. It makes it more experiential and all that. Okay, so students must provide an honest reflection in writing in terms of what they have learned. Okay, what went right, what went wrong, what kind of lessons that can be obtained from that activity. I mean, after all, it goes back to the earlier point that I made. That is, the best lessons in life comes not from the absence of failure, but from the abundance of failures. When you fail, fail, and fail, they become the best way to learn what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. Okay, so the students also, I know we are, you guys are, I mean, not me lah, but all of you are in the system where you are required to give grades. Because if you don't give grades, what happened? The MQA will say, oh, non-compliant, you didn't fulfill all of this, what, borang-borang. So that's going to be a problem for you and also the students and the program. But in the true spirit of learning, okay, again, it goes back to why do we have assessments in the first place? It's about making sure we have quality. The students that come out are actually able to perform. But of course, it has that so-called negative consequence, where students try to game the system sometimes. Sometimes they try to cheat. So tell your students they should not be so concerned about grades. It's fine if they fail the subject. Okay, whatever, if it's a core subject, it's fine if they fail. It's the grades are just for formality's sake. But the real key lessons come from how you have put your lessons that you have acquired to good use and what kind of insights you have acquired from the activity. And more importantly, what can you use the knowledge to add value to people's lives? Again, it goes back to that idea. When you add value to people's life, that becomes the true competence. Can you repeat that over and over and over again so that, regardless of your clientele, these people will find that you are someone who can actually perform. Okay, here's an example of a portfolio. Now, I'm going to be having to restart the presentation because it's on YouTube and I can't actually sync it up here. So just give me a second here. I'm going to stop presentation and share it again. Hang on. Chrome tab. So can you all see this screen right now? If you can see the screen, please do type yes, because I kind of need to know if there are any technical issues. So this is a YouTube video of building the perfect squirrel-proof bird feeder. Can you see this? If you can, do type yes, you can see, or just type yes. Can you see the video? Is everything okay? Umu? Anyone from ADEC? Can you check?
Hi, yeah, we can see the video.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to share this video. I'm not going to play the whole thing through, but I'll share the link here as well into the chat group if you want to watch in your own time. Now, this guy, his name is Mark Robber, and what's so amazing about this guy is he's one of the NASA engineers who actually developed the Mars rover. You all know the Mars rover, right? It's the first craft that landed. Sorry, it's not the first one. It's, I think, the second one that landed on Mars, the rover, and it has all that parachute and the boosters, right? And having that safe landing. So he's one of the guys who actually developed the robot. And this guy, he has this channel, and it's fantastic because when I watched this video, right, I learned so much about a couple of things. Number one, physics. I learned about physics. I learned about engineering. I learned about animal behavior. I learned about what else? Animal psychology. Sorry, animal psychology and animal behavior, as well as animal kinesthetic, like how they move and how they perform. So what he did was
bird feeder, and everything to my left is
started
my
with this.
attempt at making it squirrel proof. If they want the bird seed, they will first need to pass through what is basically an 8-part Ninja Warrior obstacle course for squirrels. This course is extremely challenging. It is not for the timid of heart. But out of the gate, I will admit that in hindsight, that I completely underestimated my adversary. Now, if you're wondering why I would go through all this trouble, we need to go back 8 weeks ago when I found myself stuck at home and very bored. So I installed a bird feeder and decided to become a bird watcher. And it was just so lovely. Until they showed up. Now luckily my bird feeder had a wire cage around it big enough for the birds to slip inside, but small enough to prevent the squirrels from getting the food. And that worked really well until right here. For me, this was like the moment in Jurassic Park when they realized the velociraptors can open door handles. And once the door was open, it was clear this wasn't their first rodeo. They basically cleared this whole tube of birdseed by the end of the day. Mind you, this bird feeder was advertised as being squirrel-proof, so I bought another squirrel-proof bird feeder to replace it. It's got this outer cage suspended by some springs, and so if a bird comes and lands here...
So I'm just going to fast forward to the part that I found it to be quite amazing, where he did the...
You can see it right here. They make their body as flat as possible, then put their tail back to increase drag. They basically become their own parachute. And then right before they land, they pull in and fully extend their arms and legs to act as shock-absorbing landing gear. This is so cool. Now back to the course where even Smart Rick eventually lets his guard down, which is exactly when she strikes.
So, I mean, you get the point I'm trying to get across here, right? It's an obstacle course that this guy actually built. Can you guys hear me? Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So the point I'm trying to make is that this guy, there's so much to learn, you know, like so many interdisciplinary sort of ideas which are all molded together. And on top of that, what makes this whole video so fascinating is that this guy has the creativity to create an educational video, to actually teach people about physics, to teach people about animal physiology, to teach about engineering, science, and so on and so forth. Now, the question then is, can we get our students, our individual students, to do this kind of thing as well, to add value into people's lives? And I'm not sure if you saw the number of likes in the video, right? The guy has over 1 million likes in that video. Because why? People saw that he's adding value to their lives. So that is what we call feedback. When you get feedback from people, the marketplace, they are the ones who validate whether or not you are adding value to people's lives. Okay, so let's come back to the presentation. So here are the key summaries I want to get across here. Yeah. Number one, conventional assessments draw heavily on grades and quantitative measures. Okay, and this can lead to very dehumanized sort of education systems that we have, because not only that, students try to game the system. They try to sometimes some of them they cheat that way. You know, a lot of these cheating problems, right, among some students can be overcome if you make it so experiential that they really truly want to learn instead of just gaming the system. Number two, portfolios must be left to the students' creativity. So okay, let me go back to that example, yeah? So what you could do, let's say if you have a learning outcome that goes something like this. I want to teach students how to, by the end of this course, students must be able to explain the principles of thermodynamics. Okay, so how do you actually make it experiential? So most of the time we think about, okay, we give them an MCQ sort of like assessment. So they just put their, we may give them an essay to fill up to explain what thermodynamics is, and then we give their grades. But what if we can take that learning outcome to do like what Mark Robert did? To actually educate people in a very informative way through YouTube, so that people actually learn through very creative means. Not only that, they will get all sorts of other skills in the process. Video editing, how to splice video, how to add, how to do all sorts of other creative stuff. Now, if let's just say video is not one of the things they want to do, YouTube is not one of their favorite things, they could use the principles of, let's say, their own experience of cooking. They may love how to cook. So how can you use your hobbies in cooking to actually relate or to teach other people or to explain the principles of thermodynamics. If you don't like cooking, you don't like to do YouTube video, but you love music, what can you do? You can write a song about thermodynamics, make it fun. So that is another way to teach and to demonstrate that you truly understand and you are able to add value to students, to the lives of the community and so on. Portfolios should be assessed by the market and triangulated. So your role as an educator, yes, you give feedback, but your numbers, you must remember, it doesn't mean jack. It doesn't mean anything. Okay, it is the market at the end of the day who would determine whether or not you are competent at what you do. So that's, if we are able to actually teach our students from young, this is the principle, what education is all about. It's about adding value to people's lives. That will make lessons very experiential. Okay, triangulate, meaning don't just rely on the lecturer or the teacher, but the marketplace. Failures should be embraced. And portfolios are one of the ways to actually go about doing this, right? So failures should be embraced, and you as a lecturer or an educator, you need to provide experiential lessons to ensure that the failure is something that the students actually really, really live with and they grow with. Portfolios can become part of a student's CV. So this is where we talk about the creative output, right? Let's say, if you are like Mark Robber, you actually wrote that, yes, I've learned how to I am able to produce videos, creative videos. I'm able to teach physics. I'm able to teach all sorts of sciences and so on and so forth. That becomes part of your CV because people now can see that this is what you are truly capable of doing. So now you see where we are actually moving one step beyond grades, because when you graduate with your certificate, this shows that, oh, you've completed these subjects, you have your grades and all that. Everyone also would have pretty much the same sort of template. Okay, they have the same kind of template, but what makes our students more outstanding is because they are able to show, I have done this, I have done that. If you want to see what the marketplace says about my performance, check them out. And that can land them jobs, but more importantly, that can also help them to be job creators, not just job seekers, but job creators. Okay, so we've come pretty much to the end of the presentation. I've actually written, if you want to have more clarity about the points, you can go to my LinkedIn page. I've actually written a short article on this. And if you, and also do add me in there. And that is pretty much it. Anyone has any questions concerning the presentation? Now, there was a question. Yeah. Hi, Janet. So you wrote about licensing. Could you just maybe perhaps clarify this question so that I can address it better? Oh, you can unmute yourself, yeah, so that I am not interacting with the, what do you call that? I'm not, okay, sorry. One link asks for the links, yeah? Okay, wait, let me just copy and paste the thing here. So yeah, feel free to add me on LinkedIn as well. I'm building my networks. Okay, these are the two links. Yeah, but which one on the license? I'm not sure what that actually refers to. Okay, anyone, any questions? Come on, I'm sure there are people with queries out there. Ta-da! Okay. Before we end, there is something I'm also ADEC asked me to share with you all. Can you screenshot the thing? Okay, so there's one more thing I want to share with you all. It's something that ADEC requested, and I think this could also help you, because in this new age of COVID-19, right, and also post-COVID-19, where everyone is so afraid to see one another in person for fear of dying, right? So I'm going to be sharing on how you can create lectures online, and you can also share this as part of your curriculum. So that means your your Moodle, your Spectrum, right? You can actually upload, you can record the video lectures, make it very multi-modal, very multimedia, and upload. So this will cut a lot of time in the subsequent courses that you have to carry out. So this software is called OBS. Wait, let me just share screen here. Share my entire screen. Okay, now everyone can see whatever I am sharing. Okay, so if you want, you can download this software. Just go into OBS, right? OBS Studio. You can just Google that. Download this thing here. Can you put the link up as well in the comment? So you can download this, and what it does is that it helps you to create this. Okay, so this is what shows up, right? And let me just give you a demonstration of how this can be used to create multimedia content. Now, I've created actually a Udemy course. Right now it's being reviewed. So once it's up, this will help to hopefully generate income. Yeah, OBS. Okay, so this is how OBS works, right? And this is a black screen. Basically, this is your computer display. You can see the mouse, right? You see your mouse?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just remove this first. Okay, now what you can do is when you come to this screen, if you want to capture, let's say, your browser, you can actually choose in here which window you want to put this in. Let's say I want to put Microsoft Edge. Okay, so this could be my browser here, and I can drag it out. Now, if I want to put my video, what I can do is I can add video capture device. So I'm currently, by the way, because my laptop's camera really sucks, I am currently using my iPhone to record this. And let's just say I'll just put here iPhone camera, right? And I'll show you some of the software that can be used to do this. So I can do this, put this here like this, and I can resize this like that. And what else can I do? I can also add another browser if I want, or I can put an image. So the image can go up here. However you want to arrange it, it's not a problem. So let's say I want to put another browser, and let's say browser 2. Oh, wait. I think I don't want to put browser. I'm going to do something else instead. I'm going to put my iPad. So I have my iPad here, and I want to, let's say I want to use my iPad as a whiteboard. Okay, so what can I do here? I have a software installed, and it's called Air Server. Okay, so you can download this. It's a paid app, but it's actually really, really good, because if you have an iPad and you want to use this as a whiteboard marker or blackboard or whatever you want to call it, you can use this to interface with Air Server. So now Air Server will be mirroring your iPad. Okay, so let me just set this up. So this is my iPad. I have a couple of apps that I've installed here, and one of them, if you're interested, you can download Whiteboard. So now I can use my Apple Pencil and I can just draw anything here. Hello, oops. Give me a minute. Okay, let's test. Hello. So you have a whiteboard here. And this app is quite useful because what you can do is, let's say after you're done writing whatever here, you can save it and then you can delete to start a new one. Like, it's as though you're taking a whiteboard and you're just wiping everything clean. And then you can use different colors, you can draw circles, you can do whatever lah. So you get a general picture. Now, how do I embed this whiteboard into the OBS? So just click window capture. Let's call this the iPad whiteboard. And then Air Server should show up here. So when you click this, you can click and drag. Yeah, you have something like this. You get a picture lah. Then if you want to put things up here, let's say images and all that, you can also do that. And then you can call it, let's say, for example, Dr. David Young's class or something like that, right? You can put it up here as a standard JPEG image. And yeah, so that's pretty much it, right? the general interface. Now, what I can also do is I can create another scene. Let's just say I want the next scene to be just me alone. So what I can do is I can put full screen. The funny thing is, right, I before COVID-19 struck and the lockdown, I wasn't using all of this and I had to quickly learn. Otherwise, our income gets affected, lah, right? Because we cannot do our business. So anyway, so what you can do here is, yeah, I'm just gonna copy paste here. You can drag this whole thing up, and voila, you can have this. And the transition will be, you can use a studio mode where you get something like this. And what people see is this, but what you see is this. So meaning, if I want to change this and I want to transition to the next screen, all I need to do is just press this, and voila, and I can go back again to this and transition back. So it's really useful, right? And you can also start streaming. If let's say you want to do a live lecture on Facebook or YouTube, you can use the start streaming. And of course, in order to do that, you need to go into your settings in the stream here, get your stream code. So let's say if it's Facebook, it's here. And how do we find out what our stream details are? All you need to go, and all you need to do is, let's just say Facebook, right? This is my Facebook page. So when you click live video here, what happens is you get a new page. Oops. Yeah. A new page like this, and it's called Live Producer. And all you need to do is go down and you find the, okay, allow. So let's say I stay on Live Producer. What's important is when you go down here, there, use a stream key. So you copy this stream key into your OBS here. Okay, you copy it here, and then, okay, I'm just going to cancel this lah because I'm not planning to start a live stream. So then you can start streaming. So once you start streaming and then you go live in your Facebook or YouTube, and voila, you're live. Now, if you don't want to go live, but you just want to record this, okay, let's go back into the screen here. So if you want to record this whole entire thing and you want to just put it on your Moodle, your Spectrum, just start recording. So you go la 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 da da da. Okay, record yourself, and then here you go, your video. And then you can upload that into your Moodle page. So that's pretty much it. It's very, very easy to use. It takes a little bit of experimentation. Again, if you don't try this, it's going to be hard lah. I mean, I've got some colleagues, right? They have never adapted technology because they never really saw the need to do it. But now it's like because of COVID-19, the lockdowns and all that, the new norm, they're all struggling because it's something really alien to them. But it's not really that difficult to use this. And once you start using this, it'll be second nature to you. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the hardware, right? So I'm using my iPhone right now to actually record myself. What you can do is go to this website. It's called ESOF IVCam. Okay, I know it's like sometimes these companies, they come out with terrible names, right? So you can type ESOF, ESOF IVCam. So download this app if you want to use your iPhone. For Android, I think you are also able to use this, but this one was built for iPhones, iOS. So I've tried many software. I've burned money as well, making some mistakes, but over time, I learned that this actually works very well for me. So I bought this software, IVCam, and I'm now using it as my webcam for my camera to actually do this. So, and for the audio, I'm actually using this device. It's a USB device. Actually, I bought this because I'm also a musician. So what I do is, can you guys see? Wait, let me just get rid of the screen here. So I'm using this device. It's called the Zoom Q2N, but it's no longer in production. You can get the latest iteration, and it's a great USB. So what you're hearing is actually stereo sound. So if you're doing recording, I mean, this is the new norm, right? We need to be upgrading ourselves. We can't just rely on our current technology if we want to really move towards creating engaging contents. This is what we need to be doing. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Let me just see if there are any questions or comments here. Okay, so please do feel the feedback, ADAC's feedback, and I hope ADAC can also share the feedback with me. Yeah. So if you found this useful, do let me know so that and also if you think there are things that I need to improve on, do let me know as well, because I'm really genuinely interested to improve the way I deliver. I'm also learning the new, trying to accommodate to the new norms. So just yeah, provide your feedback. That would be great. Okay, so that's about it. Anyone from ADAC wants to end this or what?
Hi, Dr. David.
Hello again.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I think it's a very interesting session. I learned a lot, so I hope you guys do too. So please fill in the feedback form. We will appreciate the feedback so much to improve our future session. Okay, thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye. See you guys.
Thanks, David. Really enjoyed myself.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Tila. Long time no see, long time no hear.